Every day, it seems that there is a humanitarian crisis somewhere in the world. From the 2004 tsunami that ravaged Indonesia, to drought in East Africa that left millions on the verge of starvation, to the 2011 earthquake off the coast of Japan, we see photographs of people suffering. Some of these photographs we see in news sources like the New York Times and BBC News. Others we see in posters for humanitarian organizations like Oxfam and Doctors Without Borders. Is there a difference between the two kinds of photographs? If an organization like Doctors Without Borders has an agenda of encouraging people to donate or take action for a humanitarian cause, whereas the function of the New York Times is simply to report the facts of a humanitarian crisis, then we might expect photos from humanitarian organizations to somehow be more powerful or evoke more sympathy for victims than photos we see in the news, since such photos might have a greater chance of provoking viewers to take action on a cause. The purpose of this video is to investigate whether this is actually the case. Consider this shocking photo of an emaciated Somalian child taken by New York Times staff photographer Tyler Hicks. In a small survey consisting of 5 photos from the New York Times and 5 photos from humanitarian organizations like Doctors Without Borders of the 2011 East Africa drought, this photo evoked the most sympathy for the drought victims among respondents, as well as the strongest desire to donate to an organization to help the drought victims. In fact, it was this searing image featured on the front cover of the New York Times at a time when most American newspapers were covering other issues such as the debt ceiling that focused the world's attention on the crisis in Somalia. In fact, if you think about some of the most iconic and shocking photographs that have awakened the world to the horrors of famine and other humanitarian crises, these photographs have usually been featured in newspapers, not advertisements for humanitarian organizations. Take this devastating photograph, taken by South African photojournalist Kevin Carter, of a starving child that drew the world's attention to the 1993 famine in Sudan. Carter's photograph was also featured in the New York Times. Commenting on the use of graphic photography to depict humanitarian crises, New York Times executive editor Bill Keller said, "We prize photographs that deserve and demand attention. Sometimes they do it with unusual composition, sometimes with wit or incongruity, and sometimes they do it by looking at death, hunger, disease, or other misery close up."